call this meeting to order of the Johnson City City Commission for Thursday, December the 15th. We're meeting in the Commission chambers at the Municipal and Safety Building. And with the meeting called to order, I'll invite Pastor T.R. Dunn to come and bring our invocation afterward if you'll remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, we're so grateful to see another day that we've never seen before. You told us, God, in your word to rejoice and be glad in this day. And God, for that, we're rejoicing and we're thankful. And God, that we come to a point, Lord, in this season of our life where, God, we're just thankful for you just giving your son to us, Lord, to be born. And God, I just pray that we would reflect on the goodness of you and the love and the kindness and the sharing. And God, it's not about gifts, but it's all about your son. And God, we just thank you. God, I pray tonight for these city commissioners, Lord, and the city manager, Lord. I just pray, God, that you would lead and guide them, God. You would touch them. You would bless them. God, as they represent not only our city, but their families, Lord, I pray that you would just engulf their families with your love during this season, Lord. And I thank you, Lord, for this great city that we are a part of. And God, I just pray as they lead and guide us through this city, that you would lead and guide them. And God, we just thank you for all that you've done. We give your name the glory, the honor, and the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. If you'll turn and face the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move on to our next item of business, I just want to take a moment to share some thoughts. When you become mayor, you're very keenly aware that you have 104 weeks, 2 years, 104 weeks as the mayor in a largely ceremonial role, serving the city as one of 5 commissioners. And I want to say a word of thanks to Commissioners Murphy, Vice Mayor Fowler, Commissioners Hunter and Brock for having elected me to have this opportunity, and I'm grateful to you for it. I am likewise grateful to the community for the opportunity to have served a place that I love. And I want to say a word of thanks to city staff who have made it a pleasure to serve, and I think a time of great success in our service. You'll find in your 104 weeks as mayor or your 4 years on city commission that there are opportunities where you can become distracted by circumstance or focused on strategy. And I would suggest to you that we have, through the times of distraction and noise, focused very intently on our community's strategic plan. And for those who may not have it committed to memory, the idea that we would have excellence in government, that we would pursue quality of place, that would be a community marked by economic vitality, and that we would be readied with future-ready infrastructure. And so as you look back on the decisions that we have made in this last 2 years and in the time before it, you can look to things like the West Walnut Street Task Force and subsequent investment in that district, where we are making a $40+ million investment in our community, not with today or tomorrow in mind, but with the future in mind. A future that many of us may not actually be the beneficiaries of, but are setting the stage, as has been the history of Johnson City for 150 years. The major things that have happened in the life of this city that have made it the place that it is today were not things done as short-term fixes. They've been long-term vision. And so whether you look at West Walnut Street or the John Sevier or the selection of a new city manager, this has been a transformational time of significant consequence for our community now and into the years to come. I have not accomplished those things. We have accomplished those things. And I want to say thank you to each of you for that. And I want to also express my sincere well wishes to those who will follow and wishes for great success. And so with that,
If I may, Mayor, on behalf of the employees of the City of Johnson City, we also want to say thank you for your leadership and service during these 2 years. On behalf of these employees, and we have some of them here, and you mentioned a few a few of the accomplishments, but on this photo is a number of accomplishments around. But if you notice.
We knew when we came up with that it was going to be very flexible.
So thank you, Mayor.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your service.
It's very flexible.
And Mayor Wise, you don't get away that quickly. I just want to say thank you. I know the time commitments of being mayor, serving the city, serving the citizens of the city. I've always said that being mayor is not a privileged position, but it is a privilege to serve the citizens. And we thank you for that time that you've put in and your leadership on this commission. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
If I may, I want to speak into that as well. Joe, you are one of the most brilliant minds I've ever encountered. I've learned so much from your leadership over the past 2 years, even on my campaign trail, watching you from a distance. You've been such a great support, not only to me, but my family and those in our community. And so may your legacy live on through the next leaders that are up and coming, and keep allowing those to learn from you. Thank you for all that you've done and the things that you will do.
Thank you. I guess I'll go next. I was looking for a motion for a mayor. It's enough about me.
No, I do. I appreciate the time. I know nobody really understands the time that the commission puts into this, but the mayor is even above and beyond what the commission does with the other meetings they're going to and the things they are required to do. Even just signing all the paperwork, it takes forever. So I appreciate the last 2 years and everything that you've done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Say something, I guess.
If you must.
I mean, Mayor, you've been all right, I guess.
Thank you.
You've been great, and as the others have said, you've been very intelligent and thoughtful in this position, and appreciate your dedicated work and taking the role serious. But with that, if you would entertain a motion, I'd be happy to give one.
I would gladly entertain a motion.
If he would so take this role on, I would make the motion that we make Vice Mayor Dr. Todd Fowler our next mayor.
Okay, there's a motion for Vice Mayor Fowler.
Second.
I want a second.
Okay, I'm sorry. I retract that motion. I'll let you do
The
that.
chair recognizes a second from Commissioner Brock.
Well, I had something to say. I
Please.
really did. Yeah. Commissioners, I think for the public as well, tonight we're at a transition point that our charter requires of us, and that is that every 2 years at the first meeting of the newly elected commission, we select among ourselves a mayor and a vice mayor. Vice Mayor Fowler has already been nominated to become our next mayor. And, he served on the commission over 6 years and has just recently completed the duties of vice mayor. We all know that of Dr. Fowler's commitment to the city, especially the countless hours he spends as team physician to multiple sports organizations in our area. He not only tends to these young athletes' bruises, but he's also known as a mentor, a friend, and a supporter of students throughout the school systems in our community. In January 2020, Todd was recognized at the 20th Annual Leaders in Christian Service at Milligan College as a community servant leader. I know he will work tirelessly on behalf of Johnson City citizens, our employees, and represent the commission with respect and dignity. Todd, I'm honored to second that. I'm going to go with the second, and for you to become the 76th mayor of the city of Johnson City.
It's not very many.
But only 6 women.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other motions or second to keep it interesting? If not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
I guess yes.
Mayor Wise.
I've been counting the days.
Last time.
I appreciate it. Thank y'all very much.
So, go ahead, please.
So I'd like to say a few words too. So
I really want to thank my fellow commissioners for the vote of confidence for me for the next 2 years to do this. I've come to know each and every one of you and appreciate each one of you, and I look forward to working with you for the next 2 years. And as Joe said earlier, that this commission isn't one person that's the mayor. It's the 5 of us that work together to do this, and the city manager and assistant city manager that help us kind of move everything along. So I'm looking forward to it. I also want to thank my wife, Sally, for putting up with me, and my 5 children for sharing all the time that it takes to do this job. It's kept me away from them too. So anyway, I appreciate them. I plan on doing my best. I will try and continue the work that this commission and previous commissions have put forward to us, and try to make Johnson City an even better place to live. I think it's a great place to live and to work right now, but try and do our best to move that along. I know we'll have challenges ahead, have challenges tonight at our meeting that we've got to try and deal with. So I ask God to be with us now and always help us make good decisions to help everybody, all the people of Johnson City and of East Tennessee, and move toward making Johnson City better. So thank y'all.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
And we have one more item of business, and then we're going to take a brief recess, and that's the selection of the vice mayor. Is there a motion to identify a vice mayor?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that Commissioner Murphy take that role if he'll accept.
Will you accept?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second to make Commissioner Murphy the next vice mayor. What number is that? Does anybody know?
Probably should be 76 also,
You would
I
think,
think.
but
You would think.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further motion? If not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
I think it's just Commissioner Wise.
That's what it'll be after this.
Yeah,
vote.
that's right. And yes, and congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
With that, we will take a 5-minute recess to rearrange the furniture or the people who sit in it, and we'll be back in just a few.
gavel is back.
Yeah.
All right, y'all ready to start? All right, I'll call us back to order, and Ms. Ball.
Mayor, your next order of business is item 3.1, which is to consider approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled city commission meeting held on Thursday, December 1st, 2022.
Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Tripp?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Fowler.
Yes.
Take me a second.
It's weird.
It'll start rolling off the tongue soon, yeah.
Commission, the next order of business is item 4.1, which is to consider appointing representatives from the city commission to various boards and committees as per the bylaws of the governing authority.
All right, so I will go ahead and make those appointments. So for animal control, Commissioner Brock has agreed to stay on with that. The Bright Ridge Board of Directors, Commissioner Brock's in her third term. We'll finish that at the end of June, and then Commissioner Hunter will take over at the end of June, July 1st, on that committee. Chamber of Commerce, Commissioner Hunter is going to stay on as our representative there. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, Commissioner Brock and myself will continue to stay on it. The East Tennessee Railroad Authority, John Hunter is going to stay on that also. EMS, Kathy Ball is the city manager that's on that, and I am on it, but not as the mayor, but as a physician on the Emergency Medical Services Board. The John City Development Authority, Joe Wise is going to stay on, Commissioner Joe Wise. And John City Public Library, John Hunter's going to stay on there. The Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization Executive Board, Randy Trivett has agreed to stay on as the mayor's designee there. Northeast Tennessee Regional Economic Partnership, our city manager Kathy Ball is on that. The Planning Commission, Vice Mayor Murphy has agreed to stay on that committee. The School Facilities Committee, Commissioner Hunter and Vice Mayor Murphy will stay on that. There are two commissioners on that board. The Tax Increment Funding Advisory Board will be Commissioner Wise and Commissioner Hunter. And then the Washington County Economic Development Council has changed their rules for their participation. The county mayor and a county commissioner are on it now, so the city manager and one city commissioner are appointed to that. And I think Commissioner Brock has agreed to do that. So those will be our,
Do you need a motion to approve that slate?
I would like one.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anyone unhappy with their appointments?
Wait, that's not the way to ask the question.
All right. Mr. Trivett, would you call the?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes. Thank y'all. Appreciate your willingness to serve.
Mayor, the next order of business is to consider appointment of a city judge. I would let you all know that we have talked to our current city judge, Stan Widener, and he has agreed to serve at your pleasure.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. I have a motion and a second to continue Judge Stan Widener as the city judge. Any further discussion? Mr. Trivett, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commission, the next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right. I will start with on my left with Commissioner Brock. Anything you would like to pull?
5.1.2.
Anything else? All right, Commissioner Hunter.
You got me.
All
That's
right.
the one.
Vice Mayor Murphy.
No, sir.
None. And
No, sir.
Commissioner Wise. All right then. I think 5.1.2 is the only one we're pulling.
I think Director Witherspoon is coming to the podium now.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. I think I understand this, but just if you could give just a real quick explanation, is it because they are moving to their automated system that we're having to change?
Erwin Utilities has provided sewer service around the Unicoi Elementary School for a number of years. We have some legacy water customers up there, so prior to the implementation of AMI, they were just reading our water meters to
Okay.
actually calculate the sewer bills. They have gone, or they're moving to AMI. This will allow us to provide those readings directly to them electronically.
Because they won't be going out anymore with
Yes,
the
ma'am,
automated
that's
system. So
correct.
we have to send someone out to read
That's
those
right.
meters and then get them, then our billing
Their
comes
their
back to
volumes,
us.
that's correct.
They're not billing for us.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to say one thing about 5.1.3. It's the Johnson City Public Library, and we're increasing money that is going to them that we failed to include the cost of living increase with the public library. So that's an increase of $38,000, but we'll come back later and have a budget amendment also to
Yes, sir.
increase that.
In January.
All right.
It will include other items that you have approved, so it'll be a mid-year adjustment so that we can include other items that have shifted during the years.
Any other discussion? All right. Mr. Tripp, would you call the? Oh, we need a motion. Need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
For a
Second.
motion and a second from Vice Mayor Murphy. And Mr. Tribbett, will you call the roll now?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor, the next order of business is to consider item 6.1, which is ordinance number 4823-22. This is the third reading of the rezoning number 1096 Johnson City Eye Clinic and Surgery Center at Hopewell Drive.
Good evening.
Evening.
As Kathy said, we have this rezone from I'm not really sure what happened.
That's okay.
You're good.
There it is.
There you go.
RP4 to B4 to relocate the Johnson City Eye Clinic. There have been no changes since the second reading.
All right. Since there are no changes,
Move approval.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Tribbett?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6.2 is ordinance number 4824-22. This is the third reading. This is rezoning number 1098, a different chick farm and orchard at 1112 Antioch Road.
Welcome back.
Thank you. The petitioners would like to rezone their property from R2 to A1.
Have there been any changes?
No changes have been made.
Move approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Tribbett?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Item number 6.3 is ordinance number 4825-22. This is the third reading. It's rezoning number 1099 Clinchfield, Echo, Extended Stay Hotel, 1011 Clinchfield Street.
Good evening, Mayor Fowler, Vice Mayor Murphy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Mrs. Ball. This is the third reading for 1099 Clinchfield Street. From R4 to MS1, there have been no changes since the second reading, no new information. to
Move
update.
approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Tribbett?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Next order of business is item 6.4, ordinance number 4826-22. This is the third reading. It's the abandonment of a portion of right-of-way known as Clinchfield Street.
There have been no changes on this either.
Move for
Move
approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Next order of business is item number 6.5, which is ordinance number 4827-22. This is the third reading. It's rezoning approximately .3 acres located at 213 South Boone Street from B3 district to B2 district.
There are no changes on this rezoning either, sir.
All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hunter. Mr. Trivett, unless there's discussion. All right, Mr. Trivett, please call. the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Next order of business is item 6.6. This is ordinance number 4829-22. This is the third reading. This is an ordinance to add Article 6.36, rural neighborhood, to the zoning ordinance.
Good evening, and congratulations all around.
Thank you.
There are changes to this one, so I'm breaking the record there. And from the first reading, we added some language about both sides of the sidewalk. We took out the 10% in duplexes, but what occurred from second reading to third is clarifying the buffer of making it 40 feet in width, preserve natural vegetation is encouraged, and at the time of the submittal, a landscaping plan will demonstrate how this intent is being met. And it adds that a type 1 buffer could be added to that. That's what came out of the public hearing and second reading. And if there are, you have.
Could you go back to the slide before that? It went,
Oh, yeah.
fairly quickly. You took out the 10%.
Yes, I took out the may consist of up to 10% of the total. Sorry, no. Yes, I took out the 10% because we did the corner lots. We limited duplexes to corner lots.
Okay, I guess,
It's still in this one just because
Yeah.
it's there,
Yeah,
but
that's-
it's
we wanna
in
make
your
sure if it
ordinance,
was
it's
red or
correct.
Scratched out or
Yeah.
something
I
on
was,
there.
I was waiting for it to turn
Yeah.
red, so.
Sorry.
But it didn't. All right. Thank you.
Can you
And-
go to the sizes of lots and such
Yes,
there
I
again?
can. None of that has changed. Is there discussion?
Do I have a motion or discussion? I know there was some discussion about the name of the new zoning.
I will go ahead and make the motion for approval to get it on the table for discussion.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I expressed in the last meeting just a bit of confusion about the naming, because rural and neighborhood kind of both paint slightly different pictures. And are we speaking to what it was before it developed or what it will be once it's developed? And I know it's a part of a bigger plan with multiple different distinctions, and I think we're on the right track. So, relying on the R2, A, B, and C, and some of those that we've relied on for so many years don't always fit the way development is occurring. So I'm all in for revisiting some new and adaptive zones. My concern is I don't understand the difference between a suburban neighborhood and a rural neighborhood, because what's proposed and labeled as a rural neighborhood looks more like a suburban neighborhood. Now, that's neither for it or against it. It's just, what do we mean by rural?
And that's where, if all four of them came to you at the same time, you could see those differences. But this one we were requested that this one come first. But certainly, if you want to hit pause and then have them all come at the same time, that is an option.
What's the timing of the remainder of them being complete?
That will depend. I really couldn't answer that question at this point in time. I'm continuing to work on them, but that will kind of depend. We've picked up the the urban neighborhood, and there's a committee meeting on that one. I can certainly have some guidelines outlined before the end of the year.
Okay. I didn't know, are we talking about 3 months or?
Or I guess a
60
different
days?
way to rephrase the question would be, how much work has been, how much progress have you even started on some, or some are in phase?
We're pretty far down in the urban residential, but that's the one that we've gone the next farthest down in. And like I said, I have not prepared the guidelines for the others, but I can certainly have that done by the end of the year.
One of the other things we discussed was the green space, open space that's being worked on.
Mhm.
And it would seem to me that we need to get that nailed down pretty well and make sure we include that in a rural neighborhood. And we haven't finished one, and we're still trying to prove another. And I'm not sure we're not moving along a little faster than we need to get everything nailed down, so.
And just to let you guys know the progress of the open space ordinance, that did get heard by the Planning Commission Tuesday. And they want to take an extra month of consideration and have another workshop to work out some of the remaining issues.
Okay. Any other discussions?
I think there was also some questions of the timing of the changes to the subdivision, the subdivision ordinances or subdivision guidelines.
The Planning Commission will hear some changes to the subdivision ordinance in January. So those would be done in they only need one reading, correct, Will? So.
And they just they go to the Planning Commission.
They just go to the Planning Commission, so.
It would also be nice to be able to have those in place before this district is assigned as well, maybe.
Yeah. So, any further discussion?
Where is staff at on it?
On what?
On this particular item, given a couple of these variables? I mean, do you have a recommendation?
I think that in our desire to work with development and to get it through, I think we may have gotten ahead. So I think we would recommend and agree that referring it back to the Planning Commission for visitation of the name, to be able to connect it to the open space ordinance and make sure that there isn't a gap that's not referenced, in addition to looking and making sure that we are able to reference the subdivision ordinance and that the plat that's submitted reflects those changes that the Planning Commission makes in that ordinance. I think we would recommend that it go back to the Planning Commission at this point.
What would that create in terms of a time delay of, moving the project through or
Are you
denying
saying
it?
it would go back to Planning Commission. If there's major changes, it would need to be read 3 times again. So I think with the name change, it will be read 3 times again.
For this commission, but it would go back to the Planning Commission and it would be 3 additional.
3
Start
readings,
over again
yes.
with City Commission.
So do we have an idea of when it would go to planning, and if they did that, how long before it came back to us?
It could go to planning in January, and then it would come back to you guys in February.
Okay, so that would make it the
April.
first week in March, or second meeting in March?
Second
before-
meeting in March. First meeting in March.
Okay, first meeting in March.
Mhm.
All right. So we have a motion and a second right now
To approve it as is.
to approve it going forward as it is, as a
Mhm.
rural neighborhood, and not sending it back.
Correct.
Okay. So if we wanted to send it back, do we vote on this now and send it back, or do we hold off on the vote?
I would recommend, if it's the consensus, if Mayor Brock made the motion, if she wanted to change her motion to modify it to that, would be much easier than voting this down and then having to do another vote.
To modify it or
Usually
rescind it
right.
and then make it
That's
different.
right. I don't know how to.
He doesn't know how to type that fast.
I will rescind my first motion and make a motion to refer it back to the Planning Commission.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I would second that.
I have a motion
Now,
and a second.
Do we
Any-
need to make the motion specific to a date certain?
Not on
No.
this.
Not on this one?
No.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Does Commissioner Wise need to rescind his second to the original motion?
Sure. I rescinded my second.
I mean, that's-
Well, you changed it to second.
I seconded the new one. Yeah.
Okay, all right. If there's no further discussion, Mr. Trivett, will you call the roll, please?
Okay, the motion is to refer it back to the planning commission. Just want to make sure that's what you're voting on.
Yes.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The next order of business is item 6.7, which is ordinance number 4828. This is the third reading and public hearing. Consider assignment of RN, Rural Neighborhood Zoning District, to an approximately 115-acre territory located north of Ford Creek and RP3 District to an approximately 20-acre territory south of Ford Creek associated with the voluntary Keebler annexation. And I would obviously note that since the
Don't have an
previous
RN.
item was recommended back to the Planning Commission, that this would partner with that and also be recommended back to the Planning Commission.
Now, point of order, I guess, it's a public hearing, so.
But we don't have an RN to assign it to.
No, I know,
so-
but I mean, we've advertised a public hearing. Do we need to hold open the public hearing? Open the public
public
hearing?
hearing that's been advertised, I believe, is item 7.1. So this is not the public hearing. I think if you want to take public comment at this time.
What's labeled as
It
public
does say
hearing?
that.
But this one will start
6.7.
over, so you'll have another opportunity on the third reading to do the public hearing to legally meet your
Since
requirements.
We're kind of tossing this out since we don't have an RN.
Okay.
And
The
you're,
only
and you're
one-
fine to take public comment at this time, but the item that is required to take public comment is the annexation, which is
Correct.
item 7.1.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So do we need a motion for this to not go on?
To be deferred to, referred back to the Planning Commission.
I would make that motion.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second from Vice Mayor Murphy. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Trivett, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy? Yes. Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
So this is, the next item is the one that we talked about, item 7.1, which is to consider the approval of the final resolution on the proposed voluntary annexation and plan of services for approximately 135 acres along Suncrest Drive, also known as the Keebler annexation. And as we noted previously, this one does require a public hearing tonight.
Good evening. This is the final resolution for voluntary annexation of approximately 135 acres located along Suncrest Drive, known as the Keebler annexation. Obviously, I do not have Peyton's gold star here, but obviously we're at the very end of this on December 15th for the third reading. Well, there was her star. I think everyone knows where this is located at this point in the process. The annexation corresponds with the proposed plan of services, and the applicant was seeking a zoning assignment of rural neighborhood and planned residential RP3. Obviously, since the zoning assignment cannot be assigned, would not recommend voting approval on an annexation at this point without a zoning assignment. This could be referred to a date certain, and I would be happy to continue this presentation to allow for the public hearing. This was the proposed plan. I would back up to this section right here. There were two zoning assignments requested. This is planned residential RP3, and this would be the rural neighborhood section with the 361 lot single-family subdivision to receive the RN designation, which was just referred back to the Planning Commission. At average lot size is 7,800 square feet if that had been approved. Obviously, the Planning Commission will have to deliberate and recommend another zoning assignment at this point. The RP3, we're all familiar with the RP3, which would be subject to the 15% open space requirement. The plan of services, these city departments have weighed in on the plan of services: the police, fire services, water and waste, solid waste collection, public works, schools, transit and development services, and recreation. The police, if this property would be to be annexed with that number of units, you're approximately 2 to 3 officers, new officers would be required for the total build out. Fire estimated increase in population would create 277 new calls with existing staff would cover served by Station 8. A projected, for the single family, a projection of 120 students, 44 from the multifamily, for a total of 164. Woodland, Liberty Bell, and Science Hill would be the schools that would, these students would go to, depending on their age, obviously. And new school bus and driver would be required. Mass transit's currently unavailable in this area. Sewer, currently the capacity can handle up to 200 homes with phased development essential in order to make necessary upgrades for the lift station, with a 5-year time frame on that being constructed. Roads, the roads within the subdivision, obviously we mentioned that there were subdivision revisions that will be heard by the Planning Commission in January, which will affect the amount of pavement and bringing the cul-de-sacs and the temporary or the T turnarounds in our subdivision regulations, and have those lined up in accordance with Appendix D of the Fire Code. Any sort of road improvements that would need to be made to the current Suncrest, or the 2 roads, the Delmar Salts and Sam Jenkins Road, would be concluded based on traffic studies that would be conducted. And then obviously the open space requirement, the concept plan that they submitted, they were reflecting, obviously the concept plan was not non-binding and really should have been discussed if we had talked about the zoning ordinance, but they had recommended 24%, or were depicting 24% of open space, which is quite a bit more than what our RP district requires at this point in time. And if this property was not annexed, then they could seek a county rezoning. Currently, the property is zoned A1, so there's quite a bit of development that could occur in the A1 district, with quite a few commercial uses that would be allowed, as long as feed mills and various other commercial type of uses.
What are some of those uses that could be built right now?
I have a slide. It may have been in the zoning district, but you could have Dollar General stores, you could have feed mills, you could have slaughterhouses, and a great deal of retail, various types of retail.
Is there an airfield or airstrip or something I thought I saw?
There may be.
It's an eclectic mix.
It is, yes.
It really is an intense use if they were with the number of uses that are permitted in the county A1.
Does the county have something comparable to a rural neighborhood?
I may need to go back to the zoning for that question. They do, and I have a slide here, actually, on another slide on the zoning assignment that has
Isn't it
that.
County R3 that gets close to it? Yeah.
The proposed rural neighborhood had the minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. Now, on their concept plan, which of course is non-binding, it had a minimum lot average of 7,800 square feet, with the 65 feet of lot width at the front building line, and it could still be 50 feet on the adjoining right-of-way, but they were proposing basic rectangular lots. So 65 feet lot width with a front yard setback of 30 feet, which is greater actually than any other front yard setback that we currently have in any of our residential zones except for the R1.
As well
and
as
then
well as the county, it looks like.
Yes, and the rear yard of 30 feet and 10 feet. And you can see that it's very similar to the county R3, except this proposal for the new city assignment is our sign is 15 feet wider on the lot width, 5 feet greater on the front yard. Could be the same or slightly more on the rear yard. And depending on the designation here of what the county R3 would abut, you're looking anywhere 10 to 20 feet, and ours is 10 feet.
Well, and a city build would require a sidewalk, which would extend the footprint of the right-of-way, which would make the effective setback seem greater, because
37
it would be
feet.
starting from further away from the center of the street. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, and This is the typical cross-section here for the local street. This is a little look into the crystal ball for January. But you can see we require 21 to 25 feet of pavement with a 5 feet sidewalk on each side. That would still stay the same, except the pavement requirement would be increased with the new proposal. But yes, the right-of-way includes the property line would start to answer your question, sir. The right-of-way or property line starts here at the end of the profile, and then the setback would be from that point.
And so the county R3 might be 5 or 6 feet closer to the street, because you'd be
right.
sacrificing the sidewalk and tree
Correct.
line. Okay.
And the county R3 then would allow more density.
Let me go back to that slide.
It could.
Yes. Yeah, with the smaller lot width, it certainly could.
Thank you.
With a larger house footprint, right?
I don't know what their lot coverage is in the county as far as the lot coverage on theirs, but ours would be a 30. Could not have lot coverage of greater than 30% in the proposed RN district. Most of the county zoning districts, from how I've interacted with their code before, is typically around that same 30% on lot coverage.
So if we are deferring this to a date certain, like the first meeting in March, we still have a public hearing, but we would open the public hearing today and just continue it till the first meeting in March.
Yes. If it's appropriate, I would like to say this too, because obviously the nature of the questions were with the setbacks and the lot widths and those sorts of things. I know there have been a couple developments in the past few years that have caused some concern. And I'd like to point out just very quickly that some of these subdivisions were built with this 40-foot right-of-way cross-section with 19 feet of pavement. There was that. There's the fact that those were also zoned RP3, which were actually smaller lot sizes and narrower lot sizes than what the commission is familiar with, the R2C. And there were some T-turnarounds that were permitted instead of cul-de-sacs. All three of those things combined, I think, created the perfect storm within those neighborhoods that have caused a lot of the issues that I think probably weigh on the mind of the commission and have caused a great deal of consternation with some of the residents in those subdivisions. With the proposed the fire code already trumps our subdivision regulations, so we're required to have larger cul-de-sacs now. We will have more pavement on T turnarounds and Y turnarounds. And this may not even be an option after January to go with the lane configuration. So we want 50-foot right-of-ways and more pavement. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in this zoning district that will be very beneficial if you all choose to annex this property.
All right. So should I go ahead and open the public hearing?
I would like to hear the number of
Okay.
people have come to us.
And I will open in just a second, but if you come up to talk, you have 3 minutes to talk. And if there are multiple people that want to speak, if somebody has said the same thing you're going to speak about, please just say, I agree with the person before me, and let the next person speak. So I will open public hearing. Anyone for or against, make your way to the podium, please, sir.
And Mayor, I would just ask that when you come up, if you'll state your names slowly. We're trying to make sure we capture names and spelling, as well as give us your address.
First off, I'd like to congratulate Mayor Fowler and Vice Mayor Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
You want to pull the microphone a little closer
Sorry,
to you.
sorry.
There you go.
And
Thanks.
good evening to you all, Commissioners. Roger Varan, Gray Station Road, 1284 Gray Station Road. I'm here to speak on, I know that we're still in discussion with this RN, but my concern is, in the studies and the research that I've done, I have found the property in question on the corner of Gray Station Road and Dummer Salts is not suitable for an RP3 or an R3 zoning. I have found the state of Tennessee and FEMA codes have zoned this as a flood zone A, which is the highest ranked flood zone of the state. City flood plan regulations 8.1 subsections 8.1.1.1 through 8.1.1.3 indicate that land is inadequately elevated and prone to flooding is not suitable for these zoning changes. Zoning Code 8.1.2 through 8.1.3.8 has the purpose of these particular zoning ordinances. Zoning Code 8.3.2 gives provisions for flood hazard reduction, and subsection 8.3.2.4, Section A, says that encroachments are prohibited, including earth and fill material, new construction, substantial improvements, or other developments within the regulatory floodway. By further examining the codes that the city has in place, there are many other codes that prohibit building in these floodplain areas. These codes go from 8.1 through 8.4 with subsections within these codes. It is my opinion, I've lived here on this, across the street from this property for 12 years now, and I've seen how bad that this area floods just across the street from me that runs down into the floodplain area. And it is my opinion that the property on Gray Station Road and Domer Salts on the corner be zoned as an R2 or an R1 instead of an RP3. I do not believe that that piece of property can sustain a multifamily townhome situation there. And that is due to the topographical plane of the way that that land lays. From attending the City Planning Commission meetings, the commissioners have already stated that they want smart growth. How is it a proposed plan of this scale considered smart growth when the city already has a strained system as it is? As we have previously indicated, examples including schools, police, fire, and roadways are being part of these strained issues. Thank you, Commissioners.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And I will mention that if we send this back, which I think we
Yes.
are sending it back, they
Yes.
can look into that. And
Correct.
Vice Mayor Murphy is on that, so
Yes.
I'm sure he will,
Yes.
he will remember what we're saying tonight.
Correct.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mhm. Good evening.
My name's Eric Barnes. I live at 374 Delmer Salts Road, just across from the proposed development. My wife and I are here in opposition to the plan as proposed. A lot of concern just about the high density of homes and apartments on this property and the impact on us. We live just downstream, and 100% of the water that comes from that will go across our property. And it's not just, it's a river already. And I've got a video, and I'll send it to the office here just for folks to see. But it's a real problem now. And with the runoff that's inevitable here, and I know they'll put, the flood control
Retention.
systems.
Yeah.
But I do not have a high level of confidence that, my property will be protected, given what I see here. Also, a concern to me is there's 3 entrances proposed here within about 100 yards of my yard, and that seems a bit excessive there on Delmer Salts Road. Also, the current, just the traffic out there already. We came here tonight, we left our home at about 5 o'clock. We could not come up Suncrest Drive and make a left-hand turn. You just can't do it. At the only time of day you can do that is between maybe 11 and 3, you might make a safe left turn there.
At night.
Well, that
Late
too.
at night.
But there is already a problem there that needs to be dealt with, and that certainly would have to be looked at, and I'm sure, I know that's part of the process. And then just lastly, just a big concern to me, with such a large development, and as I understand how it will work, the D.R. Horton would come and, they purchase lots in blocks and do from the developer. Well, what happens, if 2 or 3 years from now, the housing market has changed and D.R. Horton decides to quit building in this area? Then we've got a, real eyesore, real problem. Would have been a lot invested that would be, I'm sure, of concern to the city. So I think that ought to be considered. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
sir.
Anyone else? Come
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Danny Sales. My wife and I live and have property on Delmer Salts Road. We join what formerly was the Keebler Farm on 2 different sides. We probably are the longest contiguous landowner with the Keebler Farm of private landowners. I do want to say, former Mayor, Commissioner Wise, I agree with you on the rural neighborhood. In reading through that and first hearing about it, was sort of pleased to see some new concepts being looked at, but the more you looked at it, the more it became just RP3. I had to agree with Commissioner Rothy on the Planning Commission that it really was just RP3. And, the saying goes, you could put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And that's sort of the way it wound up with me. So I'm glad to see you're looking at that again, not particularly disenchanted or disagreeing with the development of it, but the name does mean a lot. And it makes it quite confusing when you get to looking at that. There are parts of Washington County that are rural neighborhoods. This kind of development is not a rural neighborhood, but it may be inappropriate for this area. This has not been the first rodeo between Gray and Johnson City, and some of you know that. Whether it was the forced annexation of city commissions of the past, or the methadone clinic that we had great discussions on. Those discussions centered a lot around traffic and highway on Suncrest Drive and Highway 75. Even during those discussions, city staff were willing to admit that Suncrest Drive was a mess, and that it was really, really difficult without expanding it or without improving it for that situation to be eased in any way. That was 5 to 10 years ago. We've known about this for a long time, and we've known this development was coming, but yet we've done nothing relative to how we get the money, how we get the state to get Suncrest Drive and Highway 75 up to Daniel Boone on the state list for some money to come. And as we all know, it takes 8 to 10 years for that to occur. The reality is, as this develops, it is going to put more and more pressure on the secondary roads, because people are going to try to figure out how to get to work or how to get to school in some fashion. And these secondary roads that impacts harder on Sam Jenkins, on Delmer Salts, on Hog Holler, and all of them getting to the interstate, there's going to be more and more pressure until this is taken care of. What I would like to suggest is that as you all proceed with this and proceed with your additional work, and don't really have a difficulty with the annexation or anything else, I have a lot of concern about the fact that we just lose good farmland, but not really concerned about that. But I would suggest that this commission maybe direct the Planning Commission to do a work group that would include the County Planning Commission, city staff and county staff on highways, state individuals as well with appropriate responsibility, to discuss what we are going to do and how we get this on the state list. Because if we're talking 5 to 7 years for this development, we better start right away in trying to get that on the list in order for us to do it. So I would encourage that you took at that, Too often, we wind up making these decisions, and annexation occurs, and then that's all we hear about it. There's a lot of work to be done here for quite a while until we get some of these issues resolved, such as the situation with the traffic on Suncrest Drive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Evening, Representative Hicks.
Mayor's, congratulations.
Thank you.
Proud of you. I know you'll do a good job.
Thank you. You still probably for,
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Just
I got
give
you.
your
I
name
got
and
you.
address
I got
for
you.
him.
I ain't gonna
We
let it
know you,
start though
but-
till I want it to start. Is
That's
that all right?
I'm holding
don't hit
off
the
on
3
it.
minutes until he's talking.
In other words, he
That's
said
right.
he's
I'm
done
gonna
this
wait off
before.
long as
That's
Tim.
right.
Tim Hicks, 194 Ripple Falls, Gray. Lived there my entire life. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm just gonna jump right in. They've covered a lot of what I was wanting to cover, but I want to talk to you about quality. I've been building homes, in the building business for 41 years now. Built hundreds of homes in Gray, and a few years ago started developing subdivisions. Every project that we've developed or home that we've built in Gray has been of top quality. This builder that will be building in this development will not be top quality. It will be anything but. They're a company that's traded on the stock market. They have one goal in mind. That's to make as much money as possible and cram as many homes on this property as possible. This builder does not even buy any of their materials here locally. They have a track record of going into communities, building as many homes as possible in as little time as possible, and leaving the mess they created behind. They have thousands of lawsuits against them. One reason that they like developing here is their cities rolls out the red carpet for them. In other areas, they're responsible for infrastructure costs, things like red lights, intersections. Not here. We roll out the red carpet and pass it on to federal and state grants. As of now, the state is going through a transportation overhaul, and it will be years before these traffic concerns are fixed. One thing that's not being discussed here is code enforcement. So far, the only good reason I've heard of passage of this development is we need homes. It's no secret that for years Johnson City has struggled with code enforcement, planning, and water and sewer. There's been some turnover with staff, and some people moved around, and I know that a lot of folks have retired, and it's hard. It's hard to fill these positions. But there's still a lot of work to be done in those departments. This development will put a strain on those departments. If Johnson City wants good growth and the right kind of developments, getting all these folks on board is a must. They want you to believe that for a developer and a builder to make a profit, that they need to cram as many homes on this piece of property as possible. That's not the case. I'm currently involved in a project in Gray. We have 14.1 acres, and we gave double per acre for our land versus what this property sold for. We are zoned PRD1 in Washington County, which allows 6.5 units per acre. That equals 91 units that we can put on this property. We could do that, but we are not. We are putting 44 units. 29 single family, 6 duplex, and 1 triplex. Less than half of what is allowed. The reason why we are doing that is so people can breathe. So people have plenty of green space to live. There will be parts of this development that won't be touched to keep the integrity of the surrounding properties. The rural neighborhood planning district that you have proposed on this development is a good idea, but not here. I would consider that to be a zoning for a smaller development, maybe in Gray, maybe even what I'd call closer to downtown Gray, not a 130-acre development. We are proud of where we live. We are not against growth. We invite folks moving here to Gray. And yes, if this annexation goes through, they may pay city taxes, but they will be living in Gray.
One of the reasons people wants to move here is we don't have huge developments like this. We want to make sure we keep it that way. We're not against Johnson City expanding into Gray. We are against the wrong kind of developments. Thank you for your time, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hicks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I'm going to leave the public comment open until the next meeting, and we're going to,
The next meeting or
the next meeting when we are going to discuss this, which will be deferred to date certain, the first meeting in March. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, you do.
So I'd make that motion, and I think we're talking about, just to confirm, March 2nd would be
March
the
2nd.
meeting.
Yes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Trivett, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
May I ask a question of City Manager? I think at our last discussion, Mr. Penzola talked about some of the plan of services regarding traffic and traffic lights. We know we already have issues out there right now, and I was out on Suncrest not long ago, and there's just no gap in the traffic. I mean, you can't get out because it's just a steady stream. And it would seem that traffic lights might be at least a short and intermediate term until the roads can be improved out there, widened. Is there any way we can get with the county, because it's not all city, right-of-way out there, the county's involved as well, and see if there's some improvements just by using traffic signals to help create some of these gaps that might help these folks get out on the road?
Yeah, I think if you're referring to Suncrest, that's a state-maintained roadway. So the state would require that we do a study to evaluate the need, because they won't allow a signal unless there's a need for it. But we're happy to reach out to them, talk to them, and ask them to evaluate it to see if it warrants the requirements that would cause us to move forward on moving a signal in. I think we need to move forward with that study and evaluate that. Part of the traffic impact analysis that the developer will do will also evaluate the same information.
We'll look forward to hearing more on that, I guess, when it's ready.
We did a study, and we have talked to the state, and we recognize that there is a 4-hour time period delay. What the state looks for is an 8-hour time frame. So we're pretty close to warranting a signal. So until we get to that point, they'll have to make an exception to their rule. If they make the exception, and if you decide, obviously you say it's in the city and the county, what we most likely would occur is that we would use STP monies that requires no match and utilize that funding source as a way, because that applies to both the city and the county. So that's probably the way I work it, unless one of the entities wanted to fund it, or the state of Tennessee wanted to fund it under some program that they have. We have studied, and this isn't, it's virtually every street that's crossing or is very close to meeting warrants. They just don't meet the warrants that they're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion, is that correct? Or
Have you called the roll?
Yeah, we just
We're
voted.
moving on to the
Yeah.
next, 7.2.
Mayor, the next order of business is item 7.2, which is to consider approval of the voluntary retirement incentive offer for Tennessee retirement eligible employees with 30 or more years of consecutive service. And if you will allow me, I'll step down and make the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, congratulations.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, and members of the commission. When I was interviewing for the position, there was some discussion about the challenges that Johnson City faced. And one of those challenges was the number of people that were eligible for retirement and the concern that that may have in terms of staff turnover, potentially not, I think it was referred to tonight even, being difficult to provide services in some cases. And as I've spent this past year, one of the things that I have become very aware of is that we have a large number of folks in our organization. We have strategically tried to think through different ways to evaluate what we could do. So we've come forward to you with a proposal of how we think that we could manage that as we move forward. So as I said before, there are a large number of folks that are eligible for retirement. We have over 900 employees, close to 1,000. Of those, 58 people in our organization are eligible for full TCRS retirement. That's our Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. That means that those 58 employees have served this community for 30 or more years. Each employee, why is this important? Some folks say we know this is a fact. For us, there is this reality that on any given week or month, there are a number of employees who could exit the organization, and we would be constantly in a reactionary mode to fill positions or to be able to reorganize to make sure that we're as efficient as possible in the services we provide. The biggest reason is to provide stability. So the proposal that we have before you is with the desire to be able to understand where the workforce is, provide an incentive to employees who are close to retirement age and thinking about it in the next couple of years, and then be able to transition them, and in the meantime do it on a timeline that would then be able to help us rebuild the organization from the loss of those individuals that have served. So it is an effort for us to be proactive instead of reactive. For me, I revert to what I know, so it's like controlling the water over a dam. If we allow a certain amount to flow out, then we kind of know what we have in there, and we're able to manage with that level. So what can we do? I've kind of alluded to this. We can manage organizational changes by providing an incentive to eligible employees. So if there's an incentive, we have a feeling that employees who are within 1, 2, or 3 years of retirement would apply for that incentive, retire, and then we would be able to build and fill positions and potentially reorganize as a result of that. The purpose of this would be to help the city better prepare for impending retirements. I think we've kind of gone through this, so I don't want to repeat all of them. We have heard from our employees that they want the opportunity to move up. Some of the people exiting our organization have said that they don't feel like they have an opportunity for promotion, and they're moving to take a promotional opportunity somewhere else. And it would help assist those employees who are eligible for retirement as they transition. So this is just a graph that depicts kind of the career and the salary that folks, most of the folks would work toward. Starting out with an income, and then you see an incline if you are with an organization for a while. When you get close to the end of the career or 25 years in, you see that salary line kind of flattens out, because most people will do something in the human resources world called they'll top out in their salary. It's similar to the concept of there's a value to a job, just like you would pay somebody to mow your yard. So there's a value to a job, and it has a high end point. So you see that at the last 5 years, the tendency, unless somebody takes a promotion or does something additional to get another job, you will see that their salary tends to flatten out. Our Tennessee retirement system is evaluated on the top 5 years of someone's employment. So an employee gets a certain percentage of their highest 5 years. This gap that we are referring to is the gap from where they're at when they leave the organization until they're able to build on other types of retirement incentives, of retirement savings that they may have, whether that's the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System, whether or not they're eligible for Social Security, and potentially with some folks having a 401k or other retirement options. So for consideration, this is not something that is unfamiliar to us. The city has offered a retirement incentive 7 times in the past. Many times those have been early retirement, so it's for folks who are not eligible at 30 years of full retirement. And those are typically done in order to save costs. So they aren't necessarily done to create the exit of employees from an organization or to stabilize an organization. So the last one that occurred in Johnson City was in 2001. Acceptance of this offer is purely voluntary. So the timeline that we are proposing to move this forward, you heard this at the work session that on December 1st, and we are here tonight. If the commission approves this tonight, we would offer all 58 of those employees tomorrow a packet of information. We have previously met with each of those employees and provided them basically the outline of what you're seeing here tonight, and that was done on December 1st. So at this point in time, they would receive the packet tomorrow if the commission approves it. There would be a decision period. This decision period is set forth by federal law. It is a 45-day period to evaluate all the options and to be able to make a decision. On January the 31st, the employee would be required to sign the paperwork to retire, or they could also just decide they want to leave. If they wanted to take another job with another community that was in the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement, they may decide to leave and then go to employment elsewhere. During this time from January 1st January 31st to February 28th, we would spend that time evaluating those employees who have made this decision, those positions, and determine how to backfill them. And the employee's last date with the city would be February the 28th. The only exceptions that we are making to this are when there are organizational shortages in staffing. So for example, if there are 10 people in the police department and those 10 people work in the field, they're police officers, and the loss of those employees would disrupt our service to the community. We would try to work with those employees to see if we could stagger those retirement dates so that they would exit the organization up until June 30th. The reason that June 30th is important, if you retire from the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System by June 30th of the previous year, you're eligible for the next year's cost of living increase. If you retire after June 30th, you are not eligible for the following year's cost of living increase. So the reason also that we're recommending that we be able to evaluate during that 4-month period. The cost of the incentive we're proposing would be 6 months of the employee's salary. So we would ask departments whenever they can to hold the positions open for 4 months so that we would realize 4 months of savings out of that 6 months. The other thing is that we will be coming to you in the work session you had on December 1st. We brought to you information about the city rejoining the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System for new employees in the hybrid plan. If the commission moves forward on that, then we would align it so it would start July 1, so that employees entering the organization after July 1 would be eligible for the pension retirement system under the hybrid plan. So what would this mean? This is simply just an outline of the same time frame that I provided you earlier. It's just written in written form. Those who would accept would remain on the city's health insurance plan until age 65, unless they take up employment in another location that where the employer offers health insurance. They may also continue to carry dependents on their plan that they currently carry. So if somebody has a dependent, they're under 65, they can continue to cover themselves and their dependents. They pay a premium split of 30% instead of 20%. So currently employees pay approximately 20% of the cost of the health insurance program. The employer, the city, pays 80%. When people move into retirement and they have to officially retire, then the city pays 70% and the employee pays 30%. The employee may also continue to cover the dependents, I said that, and they would be eligible. So we have supplemental plans that would cover cancer, critical incident, life insurance. Employees would be able to continue that under the COBRA. So we wanted to provide options. We are providing a recommendation, but we wanted to let you know that, as I said before, there are 58 employees that have served in the city of Johnson City for 30 or more years. In that calculation, we have our human resources, Melanie Keene, is here. She ran the numbers, and that number is as of February 28th. So if we have an employee now that has 29 years, but with their sick leave, they can count some of that towards their retirement. We have included that so that all of those eligible employees can benefit from this offer. We have 27 employees at 35 plus, and then we have 10 employees at 40 plus, and we recommend 6 months of salary. So many of these employees, all of these employees, have banked sick leave and vacation time. So the cost of that is a liability in accounting terms that we have on our books. So we are required to cover that because anytime an employee leaves, we pay out their sick and vacation leave. The amount that we currently have in the assigned fund balance for this is about $4.5 million. Of this $4.5 million, 38% of that is allocated toward these 58 employees. So at the time these employees, if they choose to take this offer, they will be paid out that. Essentially, that hit into the assigned fund balance in cash flow would happen in this year. But it currently exists on our books as a liability. So our staff recommendation is that we offer the voluntary retirement incentive to employees with 30 plus years of consecutive service with the city at an amount of 6 months of the employee's salary.
Ms. Ball, thank you for the presentation. Out of the 58 employees eligible, how many are department heads?
8.
Department heads.
Oh.
In the event that all 8 department heads retire, I mean, we know there'll be a loss of institutional knowledge. Do you have any concerns regarding that?
We would definitely lose that institutional knowledge. I think in some departments, there has been a really good plan of backfilling some of those positions. And so there are folks in the organization that I think would be ready and willing to step up and would be ideal. In some cases, I think we would look at opportunities for reorganization as a result of that. We have some departments that don't necessarily in other communities stand alone as separate departments. So we would evaluate whether or not they would fold in and potentially be a part of another department. And then we would also know that, we would honestly tell you that over the next 6 to 9 months, we would be in a rebuilding period. I hate to use sports analogies just because I know everybody doesn't relate to them, but it is a period of rebuilding, and it is a point of saying we're in the phase now where we need to identify who's going to be here in the next 2 to 3 years so that we can look at who's going to be on the team at that point. And we certainly have, value that knowledge and value those employees. But we also know that we need to plan around that, and we need to do succession planning. I think this, some of the questions I've received from employees are around the time frame, and it's a shortened time frame. Having something like this, it's been my experience, occur in an organization is disruptive, and disruptive isn't always a bad thing. Disruptors, as we all know, can be good things in our lives, but the longer that goes on, the more it tends to disrupt the organization. And, our staff is committed to first serving the organizational needs over the individual employee needs. So we've really kind of said we need to tighten this, we need to minimize this time frame so that we can then start that rebuilding period. And I probably over-answered your question, Vice Mayor, but I want to tell you that we have looked at each of those, and there will be significant holes for each of those individuals, but we will manage through it.
If I could ask a question, I think kind of relates. Of the 57, if 8, so roughly 15% of your eligible population are department heads, when you look at the projection that you're going to hold those positions till July 1, you don't fill department level head positions in 2 and 3 weeks. Like, what is the expected time to fill a lot of these positions? I mean, you know, it took nearly a year, well, it took 6 or 8 months to find a city manager. So I'm just asking, you know, do you have a projection for, you know, you kind of spoke to it like, well, we'll hold it open. Well, I don't, some of these positions are going to be hard to fill in 4 months, even if you wanted to.
That's correct. I think when we have, I think normally a department director, the 2 that we've recently had, it was at least 4 months. And then, you know, the time of arrival for that person to come on. So we may make a decision, but then it may be another month before the person, if they're coming from the outside, could transition into that job. So it normally takes for department directors at least, I would say at least 3 to 4 months to make that transition at best, I would say. Other positions, it may not be as long. My assessment and looking at the fire department and some other places, we are seeing a higher number of employees apply for jobs. I hope that we're turning a corner in terms of the applicant pool, the interest in the city increasing.
You can still recruit during this period, and so at the end of the period, you're ready to make these hires, I would imagine.
Yes, we would. I mean, hopefully, we would during this 4-month period, we would be in the process of filling those positions.
I have a question, Ms. Ball. Retirement's a big step, you know. Do we have referrals or at least some resources so that the employees have someone to talk to help do some of the retirement planning that would be needed?
And I would ask Ms. Keene to come up. In the packet that we're providing, we had committed to employees that we would provide them with information, but I'll let you speak to that, Melanie. I don't know if you've been in front of the commission. Melanie is awesome.
Well, thank you. Good evening.
As a lollipop, you know.
Right. How could I follow that? No, I'm just kidding. We do have packets prepared for each employee that takes interest in the voluntary incentive. I have secured and confirmed dates with TCRS representatives who are going to be here for 2 days next week to meet with the employees who would like to talk with them. Also have representatives from the trust company coming 1 day next week to talk with employees in case they want to do something different with their funds. So yes, we do have a packet of information ready for them, resources available, and of course our office will be holding hands if we need to, or making connections if we need to as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation.
So is there 2 more readings for this?
No.
No, this is it?
This is one time.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the proposal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just would acknowledge that this should be a surprise to no one. You know, a year or 2 ago when we started the search for the city manager, one of the phrases that stuck in my memory when we went out looking for who the city manager was, there was a phrase in the advertisement that said, pending silver tsunami, which seemed pretty hyperbolic, but it was like, okay. But when you looked at it at the time, 21 departments and 2 assistant city managers, so 24 people leading component parts of the organization, the majority of whom could walk to HR and walk out the door like that. And so we said to whoever we would hire as our city manager that one of the things you're going to have to do is manage to that kind of volatility and change. And I want to commend the city manager that this proposal, I think, does that by respecting the service and tenure of the employees who have been here for decades and have given blood, sweat, and tears to the cause of the city over all those years. Let us not lose sight of that. But also does it by recognizing that as much as we need to celebrate our past and recognize our present, we can't sit idly by waiting to see what the future does to us. We need to chart our own course. And I think that this does that in a way that respects and recognizes while at the same time looking forward. So,
And if I may add, Commissioner Wise, I would like to note that this is not an effort to push anybody out of the door. This is an opportunity to give those permission to transition into their next season. And so I think this is a good step to help transition to be made more easy. And those who want to take that opportunity to take it, they can. And so those who want to stay and work 60 and 70 years, they have that opportunity as well.
I think it does give us an idea of who is going to be staying, which is a very important thing for us to know. Those people, if they're not going to take this, we know they're going to be here for a year or two at least. So that gets us on top of those people that are staying and those that are going, so we have an idea of how our plan's going to go. So that's a great thing. So.
Well, I think this is well thought out, and appreciate all the work that y'all have done and Ms. King has done to put this package together. And as you said on your first slide, it's voluntary. If people want to take it, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. But it's a good offer. But thank you.
All right, if nothing else, Mr. Tribbett, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
I don't have any other items.
Merry Christmas.
Now,
Speaking of that, do we need to do something about the airspace over Johnson City on
I
Christmas
think
Eve?
you're just going to
gosh.
have to operate without
Christmas is
permission.
canceled. It's ruined.
I told you, I could act like Mrs. Claus tonight, and we could just go ahead and grant the airspace.
But we'll
I'll
make
get
sure
word
that
to
the
them.
airspace is clear December 24th that night to make sure Santa has a good way to get into Johnson City and all the homes there. So, all right, anything else? I want to start to my right over here with Commissioner Wise.
Nothing new.
Vice Mayor,
No, sir.
Commissioner Brown.
Just that we had an open house out at the new spay neuter clinic, and I do want to arrange a time that our commission can all go together so you can see what's happened out there. It's pretty amazing, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Yeah.
Congratulations to the new mayor and vice mayor.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, and I do want to end on thank you all again for the vote of confidence for mayor and for Vice Mayor Murphy, and with that, I will adjourn us.
All right. That's your first and last one of the year.